this broadcast live like a... Okay, so I'll welcome everyone. In case anybody is actually watching us, we'll just wait for... They're watching.
Only staff as far as webinars. You could be watching at home through us, but still not really doing that.
Oh, I see, yeah. Okay, we'll just wait for the Scots.
Can you remind me to?
Did we actually advertise this like on our meeting schedule so people would look online and they would see this? Okay, thank you. Well, I don't know if our municipal manager's joining us or not, but Jen and Sean, thanks for being our first guinea pigs with this new process of having a policy and planning committee meeting of council open to the public, and the idea here is to allow the public an opportunity to see some of the discussions that are taking place and hopefully guide programs into the future. So thanks for being our guinea pigs.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for the opportunity. It's sort of lended itself quite nicely to some recent direction that staff had at the May 27th regular council meeting, directing staff to discuss with council in more detail essentially the endorsed sidewalk programming that we presented at that meeting. I think there was some specific questions around some of the projects that were identified, and we really didn't have enough time to get into some of the details and nitty gritty. So Sean's prepared just a presentation that sort of dovetails into that discussion, and he'll present it, and then we're happy to answer any questions. I know there's been some more recent, we've heard some from members of the public in terms of how the district in fact sets priorities around sidewalk connections. So
thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, just on an off note, I don't know if you would have seen the lovely little post that was put on social media about a week ago, where a member of the public called in at, I think the person wrote down the time, 6:58 a.m. to raise a concern about a pothole on their street, and before 9 a.m. you had it fixed. And that got a lot of Did you see that?
There was another one. I got an email last week, I guess on Friday afternoon, that you guys were going to replace that sign at Nelson. But it was already done by 10 in the morning, I think.
Oh, I think we
That was great.
provided you, yes, yeah.
They were thrilled.
They were these are just kudos, so there we go.
Yeah.
Well, no, appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, Sean.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this presentation, as Jen mentioned, is just a bit more information about the sidewalk program that we have, just the overall program, and then some specific work that we're proposing for 2024 and options for 2025. Sorry. Sure. Oh, there, sorry. So we'll just have a quick background on the program and the sidewalk programming prioritization, and just talking about next steps for 2024 and for 2025. So as Jen mentioned, this came forward from the May 27th regular council meeting when council recommended a workshop to consider further sidewalk prioritization projects. So just a bit of background. In West Vancouver, it's only about 77 kilometers of sidewalk, solid surface sidewalk, so that's asphalt or concrete. There's additional sidewalk that's gravel, but because of looking at something you can plow the snow off of, that's available to all ages and abilities, people with wheelchairs, people with walkers, people with mobility issues. We focused only on the asphalt and concrete sidewalks. And for local roads, it works out, there's only about 91% of local roads don't have sidewalks. So there's a large percentage of the local roads that have either gravel shoulder or no walking surface for pedestrians. Oh, sorry. It's too far away. I'm not hearing you. Sorry about that. And then part of the reason why we're looking at sidewalks is that they're a safety feature for pedestrians to separate them, provide them a separate space from vehicles. But also, from the transportation, the North Shore Transportation Survey, which was completed, the last one was done in 2021. The District of West Vancouver, only 33% of the people that responded to the survey felt that they lived in a walkable neighborhood, and in part that's because of a lack of sidewalks. So, I was talking about our sidewalk prioritization. We have 3 streams of requests coming in for sidewalks. The first stream is the sidewalk network study, which was done, I think, in 2016. We have resident requests, and we also have the school safety audit that we did in the requests coming from the school. So those are the 3 streams of sidewalk requests that come in. We then evaluate them and give them a points for each segment of sidewalk, and that helps us to prioritize which ones to focus on. And then after that, we look at the constructability. So some sidewalks will be extremely difficult to construct because of various reasons. Rock outcrops, narrow shoulders, vegetation, utility poles, driveways. So they may not even be possible to build. And then we also, at the same time, we look at opportunities to build sidewalks along with other projects. So if we have a paving project, can we combine the sidewalk and the paving project together? And then based on the points, the constructability, adjacent projects, we come up with a finalized list that we'd recommend for sidewalk construction. So the points are based on the information we got recommended in the pedestrian network study, which is 2017. And so we looked at the pedestrian safety, pedestrian demand, and the overall network. And based on that, we give each sidewalk segment points. And based on that points helps us to prioritize which segment to look at. The pedestrian network study also gave us our general guidelines and to try to shoot for. So like on arterials and collector roads, have sidewalks on both sides of the road. Local roads try to have a sidewalk on one side. Except when you have main routes to schools or community centers, you try to have sidewalks on both sides of the road. And then the network study also recommended that a sidewalk should be 1.8 meters wide. That allows 2 pedestrians to walk down the street side by side comfortably without sort of bumping into each other or bumping into adjacent objects. So from the school safety assessment program, the 2 top priorities that came out were the Irwin Park Elementary and the Pauline Johnson Elementary, Jefferson 22nd to 24th Street, and the Cypress Park Elementary, Marine Drive, Stearman Avenue to Ferndale Avenue. And then we had additional resident requests, 24 resident requests so far in the last year and a half. And so we have added them to the mix as well. And as I mentioned, after we give the points, then we looked at constructability. And there's areas in the district that it would be very difficult to construct a sidewalk. So we have some very steep driveways that come down to the edge of the road. So a driveway can be up to 20% where a sidewalk we only want to see, generally speaking, 2% on the cross slope. So it would be you wouldn't be able to build a sidewalk with a driveway coming into the edge of the road. Now we have cases where you have the utility poles that are close to the edge of the road, vegetation. Some homeowners have spent a lot of money landscaping. They've brought their vegetation, hedges, trees right to the edge of the road, which makes sidewalk construction very difficult. The other issue is, in some cases, to put sidewalk in, we have to remove parking. So it becomes a balance. Is it more important to save the parking or construct the sidewalk? Then we have geography, steep grades, rock outcrops, creek crossings. And then the other thing, some of the road right-of-ways are fairly narrow. So they're trying to get a road plus sidewalk, there isn't enough room. And as I mentioned, there's rivers and creeks that also make it difficult at certain locations to build a sidewalk. So the next slide is just some examples of Cranley Drive, Telegraph Trail area, narrow right-of-way. It's kind of hard to see in the picture, but there's a rock outcrop, and then you have vegetation that makes it restricts it. On the next slide, you see the steep driveway coming down. So to try to build a sidewalk there, you couldn't because once you did, this driveway would be cut off. Once we look at the constructability, we also look at the opportunities to combine with other projects. So in Queens, when we resurfaced Queens Avenue, 15th and 19th Street, that's when we took the opportunity to add a sidewalk. Last year on Caulfield Drive, when we repaved the road, we took the opportunity to improve the sidewalk, putting a sidewalk letdown, and we had put a raised crosswalk across Caulfield to provide access to the back of the school. And then just recently on Cross Creek, as part of the BC Hydro project, when they reinstated the barrier on Cross Creek, we shifted it closer to the road to provide a much wider space behind the barrier for pedestrians and for cyclists. We still have this summer, at the top by Tyrol Road, there's a little bit of work we need to do to widen out at the top, but we should be able to do that fairly easily. But with the help of BC Hydro, we were able to, I think, create a better facility. So based on the inputs that we received, the priority points, the constructability, and the combining with other projects for 2024, as you know, we recommended adding sidewalk to the east side of 19th Street between Marine Drive and up to Esquimalt, and then through a pathway to Fulton. And then we recommend on the south side of Marine Drive from Morgan Crescent to Ferndale Avenue, and the south side of Marine Drive from Cypress Creek to Keith Road. For these three projects, we have external funding of about $266,000, plus ICBC has said that once the project's complete, they'll do an evaluation and they will contribute money to the projects as well. It may not be as much, but it could be in the $10,000 to $20,000 ranges to help with the safety benefits. So the Marine Drive projects, the council at the May 27th meeting supported. So I thought we'd give you a little bit more information about Marine Drive, just a quick overview. 19th Street to Fulton. At the south end, there is, the reason it came out of the network, a high priority of the pedestrian network study, and we've had a few complaints from residents about the angle parking. It's pinching off, there was a gravel sidewalk. The drivers are nosing into the gravel sidewalk, making it difficult to use. And the bigger vehicles are hanging out into the road, making the road very narrow. So what we're suggesting is from where essentially continuing the concrete sidewalk up to Esquimalt, and then carrying on up to the pathway that crosses to Fulton, and then asphalting the pathway across the bridge to Fulton. And this project specifically has $145,000 from TransLink. And this gives a bit more information, is that we'd have a concrete sidewalk and then the asphalt pathway from Esquimalt to Fulton. And then the parking that's right now angle parking on the southern part of 19th Street, we'd convert that back to what it was before, which is the parallel parking. And that would address issues with the width of the road as well as people nosing into the walking area. So the next slide just gives you a couple of quick pictures showing that when the 2015, there was parallel parking on 19th Street, but over time, I guess the parking demand increased, people started nosing in into the parking area, which is causing problems today. And then the others, the right-hand side just shows what the gravel pathway that connects up to Fulton. And then for 2025, we've started the process, and we've come up with a list of 7 projects. We're still we haven't completed all the analysis, but what we thought we could do is once we complete the analysis, we can come back in the fall with the recommendations on 2 or 3 projects for 2025. But we thought we'd give you sort of a heads up of the ones that we're considering at this point. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thanks, Sean. Is there any factor in this about pedestrian usage? The one on 19th, I'm surprised because I didn't think that was, sorry, this mic's a bit loud, but I didn't think that was a high pedestrian corridor. I thought most people go through the park in that area.
I didn't collect any pedestrian volume data. I could go back, and I didn't go back, or I could go back and see why.
Like, was it driven by resident requests, or was this?
It came out of the 2017 study, which had public open houses and public consultation period. So I don't know. We don't have current volumes of pedestrians on 19th Street. We do have the complaints that we received about the cars nosing into
I can see that. Yeah.
And then we had complaints from drivers on the other side complaining about how narrow 19th Street was, but I don't have any current pedestrian volumes.
Yeah. I mean, I just think of all the places where, I mean, the big one that I see on a daily basis is Marine Drive out above, just west of the West Van Yacht Club. And that incredibly treacherous, difficult part of Marine Drive.
So maybe I'm happy to provide a bit of information on that. So there was a previous study that was undertaken in, I think, 2018, 2019 in terms of the viability and high-level sort of costing, because, of course, I guess what would be the northeast side or the northbound lane is bound by about 9 meters plus, depending on where you are along that length of corridor of rock. And so one of the questions was, what would it cost to remove the rock in order to provide for that expanded footprint? And is it safe to remove the rock? And of course, that lended itself to the discovery of some other sort of rock hazard, I guess, considerations along certain zones of that corridor, which we're working towards addressing. So last year we had budget to address 1 or 2 of the zones, and we've got some more budget this year. So the first step is addressing the sort of hazardous condition that might exist. And then I think in terms of the sidewalk facility, the significant findings were that the cost is just not viable to construct it, but moreover, there were some pretty significant concerns in terms of removing the rock along certain areas of the corridor because of the downslope homes, that it couldn't be done safely. You'd have to essentially blast. And so there was quite a bit of concern from the rock mechanic engineer just about that. So I don't disagree that, that is a corridor along what is an arterial route that doesn't have a PED facility, but I think we might have to resort to, and Sean, you and I haven't talked about this in detail, but I'm not sure what the solution is. Of course, Seaview Walk is up above, but that's a pretty long detour kind of thing to bypass that section of roadway.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people I see walking along that section. And I guess I've always assumed it's going to have to be some kind of clever cantilever out, and then you've got the driveways with the beautiful walls. I don't know how that gets done, but I always assumed that at some point in time we would have to cantilever to the south. I think going onto the north side of that road is impossible. But, there's an elderly person who's walking there every day, and I just go, this is crazy. Councillor Watt probably sees her as well. Crazy. I don't know. I mean, I just would love to see some solution to that, but let me go on to the others. Councillor Gambioli.
So thanks for the presentation. Could you just go back to your last slide for the future ones? Because I didn't get past the second one in my reading. But in the meantime, 19th Street, we spoke last week, so you know my thoughts on that. I 100% agree with the sidewalk up to Esquimalt. I'm a little more shaky on the rest of it, but leave that up to you. I think actually if we did asphalt on that upper part, it's really steep. I'm concerned about people slipping, actually. I think the hard gravel might actually be better, but you're the professionals. I leave it up to you. But regardless, I think it is really important to have to plan where we're going to do sidewalks, but not necessarily concrete sidewalks. I mean, we can do that if we got the money, but to work on creating space for pedestrians, I think is important as well. So whether we can do it by just starting with a gravel pathway and taking back some space from parked cars, or taking back some space from the roadway that's underutilized, and then the following year we can do a sidewalk, or 5 years from then. I think that to make a plan, if we don't have enough money every budget term, is important. We've got to start doing that. So I'm just looking at the other ones. Gordon, 20th to Marine. Okay, right. Oh yeah, and on that note, so I live right near that number 5. What's interesting is that we put in a kind of a bike lane on 20th between Inglewood and Mathers a couple years ago, and it's a bike lane only in the sense that it's painted, But what I notice, because I do go up there a lot, is that all the pedestrians use that space because there are no sidewalks on either side of the road. But it's a safe space. It's just a white painted line, and there aren't that many cyclists all the time. But students walk to school in that space because it's the only safe space on the road. So my point is, taking away some space from cars, regardless of whether it's just a painted line and whether we can afford to put in concrete, it's helpful. So anyway, just and drivers get used to it after a period of time, and then 5 or 10 years, maybe we can afford to put in a concrete sidewalk. But anyway, that first piece is sometimes the most difficult, is to just take that space away from cars. How do we decide, you had a slide earlier, how do we decide, or how do you prioritize the collector roads and the arterial roads where you say we should have sidewalks on both sides, as opposed to a local road that doesn't have any sidewalks? How do you balance that equation? Because I would think that if there's something on one side, that's good enough for now. We really don't need to have it on both sides. I mean, unless it's, how do you balance, how do you decide?
Yeah, we would definitely look, that would be one of the factors that come into play. That because we look at the pedestrian volumes, the truck volumes, the car volumes, the speeds, and what the land use is. You don't need a sidewalk on both sides of an arterial that's more isolated area.
Okay.
Versus a local road near a school or a community center. So the point system, it gives us a bit of, there's flexibility there, how we apply the points. And it will come down to a bit of a judgment call as well. If we have a sidewalk that's working now, at least one side, where we have an area where we have a high demand for a local road, we would definitely weigh that out as we're looking at where we prioritize.
Okay. And I should say that on 19th, because I do take that route walking up and down from time to time, there are pedestrians. You're right, some people choose to go in the park, but if it's raining or whatever, you have to walk on the road. you have to walk on 19th, because like you say, those cars are parked right up against the fence, and you can't go in front of their bumpers very well. So yeah, I end up having to walk down the middle of the road, which isn't ideal if I weren't very, mobile. And then just getting on to the question that's going to come later tonight, I'm sure, our Glenmore section of sidewalk, potentially, or space. I now see we've got a letter from the school who also support, some kind of sidewalk structure. So in the end, I've been up there. There doesn't look like there's a lot of space for a real official sidewalk, plus the parking that exists there, plus the huge trees that are all the way along. So how do you think we might manage that? Or like you said in your report or your email to us, you don't think it's warranted?
Well, yeah, thank you, Councillor Gambioli, to expand on that. In terms of when we think about pedestrian volumes and where it is in relation to the school, we don't feel that it's warranted. And if we were to sort of put it through this kind of vetting or analysis to sort of bring some equity in terms of its priority versus other connections, or areas that are underserviced in the district, we don't think it would rank very high. Now, as I understand, there's a development rezoning. It's not significant, but there's a rezoning being considered, and some discussion around whether or not any sort of amenity contributions could be used towards funding that facility, and that's really something. I think for council, I had just commented that it doesn't appear as though, just based on a very high level order of magnitude of cost, that the sort of funding would be sufficient to deliver, a AAA concrete sidewalk facility. Now, just returning to your earlier comment, the gradients are fairly flat there. The existing roadway does, I think, a large section of it is sort of contiguous gravel surface that is utilized as on-street parking. I think in my response to you, staff had sort of estimated there's about 27 spots along the length of corridor that's been identified by this petition. And so, certainly staff can look at whether or not like a naturalized surface and just reestablishing or placemaking for pedestrians that, might be more cost effective. So whether that's, introducing delineators or something else. There's probably options that we can look at to achieve a pedestrian corridor. It's not going to meet sort of AAA, but then I went on to emphasize that there's considerations and trade-offs if you repurpose that space. So I just, objectively speaking, just want council to sort of be aware of all the considerations.
So my last question on that note then is that, if we can't, or we're not going to be able to afford to put in a concrete AAA sidewalk there, then why are we making the developer put in a concrete AAA sidewalk just in front of their space, which isn't going to be attached to anything else? So I just wonder about that.
I'm not familiar enough with the actual development, the details of, I think you're talking about the lands that front the parcel and what's required. I'm not familiar enough with those details to
it would seem odd to put a sidewalk in the middle.
It is recommended by staff that be done as part of the development.
Yeah, if we're not going to do the whole block, then why would we do?
30-foot stretch and not the rest.
Yeah.
I just wrote that exact same question down myself.
Okay, that's good. That's good for me. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, and I just do want to reinforce that we tend to see a lot of these situations, right, where you request something, but it only goes mid-span, and I hear a lot about this out towards Eagle Harbor as well. And I do think it's really important to take a real comprehensive approach to this. And you mentioned that that when you're assessing these things, that I think you said that you consider if there's going to be other sidewalk improvements and things like that. And, one area I get a lot of complaints about is when we painted the bike path that was funded by TransLink from 26th to 31st. We painted the bike path and then a few months later tore up 29th and the intersection, all four corners, to put in sidewalks and a bus stop, I think on both sides, and then had to repaint. And then there's been a few other things like that up 31st. And that's the type of stuff that I feel feels like we're just kind of wasting money and frustrates the public. And the 29th the 19th is an interesting one where I walk it enough, and there's little neighborhoods where there's not a huge amount of car traffic. They're not necessarily through neighborhoods, although people do go in and out of them. And by your description of how you described why you want to put a path there, it seems to me if you just took away the angled parking and provided space for walking and driving through, it would be enough for that area as far as the cost benefit. Because those types of places, people do tend to walk on the road and then they've got the park right there. So I do question kind of the value added there. And to Nora's point about the sidewalks on both sides, and when you talk about the Ferndale around Cedardale School, there's quite an ample sidewalk built that could take the kids right down. I don't know if there's a cross path to Ferndale if they want to go to the beach, but there's definitely a path that can take them down to Stearman. So again, is it really necessary where there's other places that need more pedestrian improvement to do that over a second sidewalk on the other side of the street? Now, Eagle Harbor, it was during the election we were met by a group of citizens that we met them on Cranley Drive, and they showed us what it was like we took their kids and walked them to school. And so there is a sidewalk on the south side of the street, but it's quite narrow because a lot of the hedges grow into it. And first of all, I'm wondering, can we not require or take care of, make sure those hedges are back so the sidewalk's ample? And when you've got a bunch of little kids running to school together, it looks quite chaotic. But the other thing is, can you put rails just to create that little added level of security there? And given that that's it's growing in small family community, and there's a lot of active mobility there, it just seems like an area around a school, around a beach, that we really need to be spending some quality time there. I know we've got speed controls there, but apparently, according to the residents, there's still people whipping through. And then we talk about the TransLink money. The area that I think we all get most of our complaints on is that connector between the dog park and Park Royal, where you've got this tremendously mixed use pathway. You got various cyclers speeding through. The visibility isn't great, and I think we really need to spend some time on making that a safer corridor. I walk it most days, and I get stopped constantly about that. We don't get half the emails that I hear on that path.
Yeah, that is a dangerous spot.
Yeah, I think that's what I have to add.
Thank you. Over to Councillor Watt.
Yeah, couple of questions. Going back to Glenmore, so given that we've had a group of residents and now the school come forward on that, has there, and engineering sees it as a low priority, has a counter been put on there to see just how many vehicles are coming and going?
Yeah, so we put a counter up there 2 weeks ago. The 95% of traffic is going less than 50 kilometers an hour. I can't remember off the top of my head what the traffic volume is. We got feedback from the residents suggesting that because it was in June, the traffic volumes are already falling because of the school's program and field trips. So they asked if we could do it again in September, and we said we'd go back in September to redo the count.
Okay, thanks. And Wildwood Lane, I sent an email on that one last week, and that was the lady, Shirley, I can't remember her last name. She came and spoke to us about wanting to move a sign to the other side of the road. And so when I drove down Wildwood Lane, there were literally 3 teenagers walking backs to my car, middle of the road. That was my first indicator of the danger over there, but I agree with them fully. There are 2 blind corners, and to even have convex mirrors on those corners, because one, they showed me there's a little off trail where kids will walk. So for those who haven't been out there, there's a shorter stretch on, I guess, the north side of the road with a 2-hour parking limit. And on the south side, there's a very long stretch where people carpool, they go to Whistler, they do whatever. And if that sign was moved, it would discourage a lot of that. Without having to install a sidewalk, it would very likely free that up. So you see the 2 corners, the 2 bends, but the section of concern, now the lady, she lives on the straight part that comes off of 11th, but the area of their concern has nothing to do with the area around their home. It's that first corner that you see, and then the bend. And where you see that bend at the bottom, there's a laneway and I guess kids walk behind the homes there, but what happens is they sometimes cross the street on that blind corner. And then when you look all the way down Wildwood Lane, there's like quite a wide shoulder, but there's no parking restriction there. So all they're suggesting is if you take that 2-hour sign from the north side, move it to the south, it will discourage a lot of those people that just leave their vehicles all day long. So I'm hoping others might go out, or that we can have more discussion on that sidewalk. And another totally off-the-cuff comment, I know I've brought it up before. Weirdly, when you go to Mexico, they've done a lot of stuff with their accessibility with the sidewalks. And what I love down in San Jose and Cabo and probably other areas of Mexico, it's painted blue right on those ramps so that you can see there's a wheelchair ramp. And it just seems like such a great solution, especially for people that are more visually impaired, or just for others. When you're driving, you see that blue. It's very obvious, and I think it really certainly does enhance safety. And back to a comment that Councillor Thompson made about hedges over sidewalks. I also see a lot of our roads. Mine is one. There's an area on Wildwood Lane on the straighter, busier part of that, where you've literally got hedges that are coming out as far as, a car couldn't park next to it. And I'm just wondering, it's not your department enforcement on that, but I really do feel that we need to enforce that, because people, even on my own street, you've got to walk out into the road around the hedge, and A, it takes up parking, and B, it creates safety issues. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
May I, maybe I'll respond to the comment about the vegetation, and then I'll defer to Mr. O'Sullivan to respond to some of your other remarks. So boulevard maintenance and vegetation maintenance does live within the roads operations budget. We've got about $500,000 per annum, and that's for district-wide treatment. So we prioritize sight lines and safety matters first, and a lot of that often does extend to include sidewalks in and around schools. I understand there's some work being done in terms of vegetation maintenance along Wildwood itself. One of the challenges is, of course, the boulevard bylaw has some regulations in terms of where certain vegetation can go with respect to back a sidewalk or the traveled roadway. And, so we try to take a proactive approach and engage residents, encourage them to maintain, we have a fairly limited budget to maintain the vegetation that fronts their home, but it, at the end of the day, is district land. So it's difficult to sort of really enforce that. But in any case, it's I just want to sort of raise that there is funding. It does sort of fall under the purview of engineering ops, and it's also, quite a costly and sensitive thing in terms of neighborhood character, and people can be quite attached to the vegetation, and that tends to sort of escalate things as well. So anyways, I'll pause there. Sean, do you have anything in terms of the specifics around the Wildwood area?
So for Wildwood Lane, we responded back to the resident that we're looking at. In response to Wildwood Lane, we've talked to the resident, and what we're proposing to do is we're having our trimming crew go out there, hopefully this week, and they're going to trim both sides of Wildwood Lane to provide a better shoulder to walk on the north side. The north side has either no parking prohibitions or 2-hour parking, but also the crosswalk to the school is on the north side of Wildwood Lane. So we want to encourage people to use the north side and use the crosswalk from Wildwood Lane that goes across Westcott. So we're trying to trim back the vegetation to provide a 1.8, 2 meter wide shoulder along the north side. The south side will do some trimming as well so that the cars can continue to park and get them further off the asphalt. The section on the south side does provide a park and ride opportunities for that is part of the transportation slate of options to try to get people out of their cars, provide park and ride opportunities. As well as this summer, it also helped with BC Hydro and working where they can park their crews. They didn't want to park in the neighborhoods. We provided this as an alternative option for them. And we heard from the school. The school also, for various events and activities, uses the parking on the south side of Wildwood Lane. And so recently in conversation with them, they preferred allowing the parking to continue on the south side. So I think our focus right now is try to trim back the vegetation and create a walkable north side, partly because of the crosswalks on that side, and partly because the parking on the south side does have benefit and value to the community.
Mm-hmm. Is there a shoulder beneath that vegetation right now on the north side? It was so hard, I would not walk on that side of the road myself.
Yeah, so I've walked it. We'll do the trimming, and then seeing what's underneath, we may be able to add additional gravel to try to improve. That's one of the drawbacks with gravel, of course, is vegetation encroaches onto it. So it'll be something that we'll have to continue to work on and maintain over time. If we find it's an acceptable alternative to banning the parking on the south side.
Is there a timeline I can relay back to them?
The trimming crew was hoping to get there this week or next week, and then once they're finished, we can then look at what other improvements are needed. Okay. They did something similar on. It's as you come off 21st, it runs. 21st takes you back onto the highway. We did similar work up there where we trimmed back the vegetation to create a wider shoulder to address some of the concerns, and it worked fairly well. So we're hoping we'll have similar success on Wildwood Lane.
Yeah. One other quick thing. So on the short part that you've got up on the map, they showed me where 2 accidents had been within the last 3 months. There's still parts of a car in one spot. So it would seem that people are whipping along the southern part, the lower stretch of Wildwood, coming around and then literally jumping those curbs. So I don't know what you do about speed mitigation, but it definitely is concerning.
Definitely, we'll get our counter out there as well to get the actual speeds and volumes. The collisions, when we looked at ICBC's historic data for the last 5 years, we didn't see any collisions. So collisions being such anomalies and random that we may never see, or for another year, a couple of years before we see an accident again. And the video we received of one of the collisions looked like it was a Tesla, possibly, and it didn't even brake before it went into the corner. So I suspect that was a case of not
one that jumped,
not paying attention to the road, looking at the phone, or maybe it was an auto mode. I'm not sure, but it did not appear the brakes came on before they hit the barrier.
So on that section, the suggestion from the resident was if you moved the concrete closer to the road, it would leave a pathway, of course, if there's no jumping cars, that would give more of a pathway for kids to get off the road and go behind it. It's a bit awkwardly placed. Anyway, I won't take up any more of your time.
And on that note, I think we could probably spend the entire evening together because you can tell members of council have great appreciation for what you do and great interest. And I'm going to thank you for being the guinea pigs for our first ever Policy and Planning Committee meeting. And with that, I'm going to suggest we adjourn. We get a few minutes break and then we'll come back for council. So thank you very much.
Can you pull up your report again just for a second? I just want to get that last page. It wasn't on the report that was posted to council, was it that very last page? I don't recall seeing the top 7.
Scott, can you just go and get it from them and we
Yeah,
can
well, it'll
take a
come up-
break?
Yeah, it still has to come up on the screen, either right there.
Oops, you have to share
Do you have it there? I can
It's not
come-
sharing.
I just wanted to,
I'm curious too.
I just wanted to take a picture
there
of
and then share.
that very last screen. Is it? I didn't see it in the council. Read all the way up there, and I just don't recall seeing, that's the one I want.
We can send this to you too if you like.
This is easy.
Okay,
That way I've got it on my phone
Accessible,
while I'm driving
okay.
around taking a look at this, yeah.
I see. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. Please be seated. And I trust while you are waiting, everyone's had a moment to read our acknowledgement to our First Nations friends and neighbors. And this evening, we're going to start with a public hearing. There were a few people who were showing up to the meeting a little early, and we did something today that was a first. Council held an open Policy and Planning Committee meeting, and we discussed in quite a good amount of detail our sidewalk prioritization and sidewalk works for the coming year. And we'll be going back to, this is a process we used to do some many years ago, and members of the public are invited to come to these sessions where we're discussing something of community interest in a much less formal way than the council meeting. And then out of the Policy and Planning Committee meeting, we'll make recommendations back to council, but it will be an informal way for members of the public to participate in this process. So I just say that in case anybody picked up the last few minutes of that meeting. So I'm going to call to order this meeting, and I'll approve the agenda, if I may, by unanimous consent, unless I heard otherwise. Thank you. So we'll move to item 3, which is the adoption of the minutes, and unless I hear otherwise, they'll be moved by unanimous consent. Oh, sorry, we're going to the public hearing first. Right. Okay, I was getting ahead of myself. Well, you see, we're also doing a new process because council tends to agree unanimously on many of these things, and we've found a way to expedite when I know there's going to be unanimous consent, thanks to Ms. Hope. Thank you. Thanks to Hope, Ms. Dallas. So if we could please call the public hearing.
I will read the public hearing procedure. Oh, there we go. Good. So the procedure for the public hearing will be described as follows. Council is convening this public hearing to consider and receive submissions regarding proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985-2018, amendment bylaw 5335, 2024, and proposed zoning bylaw 4662-2010, amendment bylaw 5336, 2024 for 14 Glenmore Drive. A public meeting will be held concurrently with the public hearing to receive submissions regarding the proposed development permit 23-100 for 14 Glenmore Drive. Anyone who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaws and the proposed development permit will be heard and or may provide written submission either in person or via email to correspondence@westvancouver.ca. No one will be discouraged or prevented from making their views heard. Council members may ask questions of you following your presentation, but Council's function during this public hearing is to listen to the views of the public, not to debate the proposed bylaws and proposed development permit. After the public hearing and concurrent public meeting has concluded, Council may, without further notice, give whatever effect Council believes proper to the representations. Your only opportunity to comment on the proposed bylaws is during the public hearing. Council is not permitted to receive further submissions once Council has closed the public hearing. Council has received documents which are available for the public to view. A hard copy of these may be obtained from the Deputy Corporate Officer or myself during the public hearing and concurrent public meeting. These documents can also be viewed online at westvancouver.ca/news/notices. Please note that the online copy of the documents will not include items received after noon today. To maintain order and to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard, here are the rules of procedure. 1. A speakers list has been established. For those attending in person, you may place your name on the list at any time throughout the public hearing, located at the door, and concurrent public meeting. If you are speaking from prepared remarks, Council requests that a copy be provided to the Deputy Corporate Officer or myself. To participate via WebEx, please phone 604-925-7004 and provide your name and telephone number to staff who will add you to the speakers list. When it is your turn to address Council, staff will allow you to unmute your microphone and turn on your webcam in order to provide you with your public input opportunity. Please note that staff will not be in a position to provide you with a specific time slot when you register to speak, so we please ask that participants who wish to address Council be available for the duration of the public hearing and concurrent public meeting. Council requests that you please begin your remarks by providing your name and municipality of residence. If you are speaking on behalf of some other person or organization, Council requests that you please identify the name of that person or organization. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes and to the subject of the proposed bylaws and proposed development permit. Please be respectful to others. After everyone has spoken, you will have an opportunity to speak subsequent times to provide additional information, if you wish. Please follow the process outlined above to be re-added to the speakers list. If you have any concerns about the rules of the hearing, please address your comments to the chair. And for this public hearing, we received 1 staff report and 4 written submissions. Sorry, 5.
5 written submissions.
5 written submissions. I can't count. On May 6, 2024, Council set the date for the public hearing and concurrent public meeting. The statutory notice of the public hearing was published in the North Shore News on June 5th and June 12th, 2024, and notices were mailed to property owners and occupants within the notification area. The Deputy Corporate Officer will note written submissions, and we've just done that, and we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now if I could ask, I think Ms. McGuire, are you leading the staff presentation?
Yeah, short presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
So good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. For consideration at tonight's public hearing is a proposed duplex project at 14 Glenmore Drive. Here you can see the site in the 2 aerial images on the screen. The top aerial image shows the site outlined in purple with the immediate surrounding neighborhood. The site is located on the west side of Glenmore Drive, directly east of Collingwood Senior School. And it's unique in the British properties, this area of Glenmore, because it does include a mix of housing that includes multiplex housing, duplex housing, and single-family homes in the immediate surrounding area. You can see the existing fourplex that's on the site on the bottom aerial image there, and that is a 2-story fourplex that's allowed under the existing zoning for that area RM4. And also to the north and to the south, there are other fourplex buildings that were built in the same era. Here you can see a rendering image on the top of the screen showing the proposed duplex development and the site plan on the bottom. So what's proposed is 3 2-story duplex buildings for a total of 6 units. And the development is proposed to be strata property development. And the floor area ratio, or FAR, is approximately 0.7. The average unit size for each unit is just under 3,800 square feet in size. And generally speaking, the duplex buildings are designed to be compatible in terms of setbacks, height, site coverage to surrounding housing in the area. And you can see in the rendering image, the design of the duplexes is proposed with a mix of materials, but designed in a coordinated way so that there's similar massing and expression for the duplex buildings. One thing that's unique about the proposal is with the project, there's also lane dedication, and you can see that on the site plan on the bottom of the screen there, shown in the tan color. So there's a lane proposed at the the northern edge of the site and the western edge of the site. And what that would do is it would allow for vehicle access to come from those newly dedicated lanes rather than coming from Glenmore Drive. Also proposed are 15 parking stalls. So 6 of those are proposed to be interior garage spaces. 6 are proposed to be tandem stalls in front of the garages, and then 3 additional visitor stalls for a total of 15. You can see on the site plan on the bottom of the screen that there is front yard patios proposed for each of the duplex units, along with landscaping for both the front yard area and the boulevard, as well a new sidewalk and pockets of parallel pedestrian parking are proposed along Glenmore Drive. So in terms of public engagement, the applicant did host 2 neighborhood meetings, one prior to submitting the formal application and then one once the application was under review. More recently, Council has received a petition and then more recently even an updated petition regarding the application. And one thing, I'll go through the requests that were made through that petition just one by one, noting that the requests are made for improvements or initiatives in the immediate surrounding area, surrounding the site. However, just one thing to note is that Council could consider these separately from the development application. So they are either improvements or initiatives that can be considered, and Council could direct staff to further review those or implement those, but they could also be considered separately from the development application itself. So the first request was for the immediate area to be rezoned to the same type of residential density and housing type as what's proposed for 14 Glenmore itself. The second request was for a new neighborhood sidewalk to be implemented along the west side of Glenmore from the Baden-Powell trailhead up to Moravian Drive. And then the third request was regarding traffic calming in this segment of Glenmore Drive. So that included a request for speed humps, included a request for an additional crosswalk, as well as a request to designate this portion of Glenmore Drive as a school zone at 30 kilometers per hour maximum speed. And then finally, there was a request to establish a joint task force for Collingwood Senior School in particular regarding parking, pedestrian safety, traffic flow, and noise concerns. That it was suggested that would include representatives from Collingwood School, district staff, as well as local residents. So just in response to the requests kind of one by one, so in terms of the request for rezoning for the immediate area, council can direct staff to undertake the work required to do that. Just noting that it would have implications for staff resources in the context of ongoing work plan items that we have. It would likely require public consultation and then probably further technical review for that request. And then in terms of the new neighborhood sidewalk, I think Ms. Mahler has already spoken to council about this, but there it is noted that the sidewalk that has been requested, it's likely that, because there is a request that this community amenity contribution that is proposed as part of this development would be allocated to those transportation improvements. And so one thing to note is that at a high level, engineering's looked at the sidewalk, and it would be expected that the community amenity contribution wouldn't be enough to cover the entire cost. So then other funds would have to be allocated by council for that. There's also, with the sidewalk evaluation priority criteria that council has endorsed, engineering staff noted that this segment of Glenmore Drive would be relatively low based on that prioritization. And there would be the consideration for removal of potentially mature vegetation and other parking in other areas of this one area of Glenmore Drive. And then in terms of the traffic calming requests, so engineering staff let us know that they did review existing traffic data that they have for this segment of Glenmore, and with that data in hand, they noted that traffic volumes are relatively low and speeds are noted to be relatively low or under the 50 kilometers an hour speed limit that exists there today. So with that information, this segment of Glenmore Drive wouldn't meet the criteria under council's traffic calming policy to be eligible for speed humps. So that was something noted by engineering. And then in terms of the crosswalk, it was noted that based on the federal transportation guidelines, that it wouldn't really qualify in this mid-block location as being recommended. And then finally, for the 30-kilometer speed zone, based on the Motor Vehicle Act, engineering staff let us know that it wouldn't meet the criteria for that to be designated as a school zone there. And then finally, sorry, this is a bit of a longer piece of this, for the joint task force, engineering staff, they just explained that there is already the START program in place, or that deals with school in the area, or in West Van generally. So just to conclude, we are recommending that council, subject to the public hearing tonight, approve the development permit, as the project does meet relevant official community plan policy for duplex housing, and it just meets all relevant policy guidelines, including provision of a CAC of just over $200,000. And generally because the housing aligns with the scale and character of existing housing in the area. So thank you. And I think the applicant does have a presentation as well.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. And just before we call on the applicant, are there any questions from members of council or staff? Thank you. Councillor Snyder.
Yes, sorry. So, Ms. McGuire, just I guess a quick question then, just back on the sidewalk issue. We heard from Ms. Muller earlier that didn't believe that stretch of area was a high priority for the district to do that. And so I guess one of the concerns would be asking the applicant to put in a sidewalk that really, I don't know how long it is, was it 30, 60 feet or something like that? And so you're going to have no sidewalk, no sidewalk, and if our engineering department is not recommending that it all be done there, a little bit of a disconnect on having a partial sidewalk, I guess.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Snyder, thanks for the question. So we did actually have a chance to talk to Ms. Muller just before coming in here, and she let us know about that comment from the previous meeting. And so we do, especially with the request and the desire in this area for potential housing redevelopment, where we have projects coming forward, we would see this as an opportunity to get the developer to pay for that improvement. And noting that with the request to potentially have rezoning in the entire area, we could then incrementally get these improvements as sites come forward, rather than the district providing their own funding for, and recognizing that does result in somewhat of a piecemeal approach to implementing the sidewalks. But over time, as we expect this housing to potentially turn over, especially given the desire, that residents have voiced here, that we could then incrementally achieve that sidewalk over time.
Right, and that makes sense to me, and I totally agree and support it. I just wanted to make sure that, because I think the sidewalk there and safety issues there with the school and stuff is a high priority myself personally. But the other question is the rezoning. I know I've addressed this with Mr. Bailey earlier some time ago, posed a question to you about the rezoning of the area. From my perspective, I think that, again, it needs to be separate from the proposal that's being brought forward here, because I think it is a complex issue, and I don't think is necessarily something that can be rolled in with this applicant's application sort of thing. And I know that there's other areas, Horseshoe Bay have done certain zoning areas and what have you that have worked out quite well. And so just my perspective on that is I think that's something for probably another day moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Snyder. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, I just wanted a quick clarification or understanding. So the 30K speed zone that doesn't meet the provincial standard, does that mean that we can't put a 30K school zone in, because it is literally around the block from it? So we're not permitted to, or is there?
Thank you, Councillor Watt. I think we can do whatever we want.
That's
And
what I was
quite
wondering.
honestly, as someone who has friends up in that neighborhood, feels like a school zone to me.
Well, yeah, that's because it literally backs onto the school and people use the street. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? I'll turn it over to the applicant. Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Oh, this is not sharing, sorry. Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I want to thank Ms. McGuire for her presentation. I promise to keep mine very short, unlike the last time I was in front of you. Through working with staff, we have designed the homes. This is not turning. Through working with staff, we have designed the homes that are complementary to each other yet unique. Most importantly, however, we feel that we have designed the homes to fit into the existing context of the Glenmore neighborhood. Our proposal is located in an area of Glenmore that has a very unique zoning. These 5 properties on the west side of Glenmore between the Baden-Powell and Morven Road are the only strip of RM4 zoning in all of West Vancouver, and we also back onto Collingwood School. Previously, as some of you will remember, we did a very similar development across the street that was approved in 2020. The frontages of the homes that we've previously built and had approved at 57911 Glenmore are near identical to what we are asking for today. In discussing this property with West Vancouver planning staff, we have chosen to dedicate a laneway along the northern portion of the property. This allows us to have only one entry and exit to the site, ultimately making Glenmore safer, and more importantly, allows us to have the garages in the rear of the homes, which not only increases the safety of Glenmore once again, but also reduces the massing of the homes and enhances the streetscape of Glenmore. Furthermore, this laneway paves the way for future development on the west side of Glenmore, as the properties to the north and south of our site can tie into this lane along the rear so that they too can have similar positive attributes to Glenmore if and when developed. As Ms. McGuire said, we have 15 on-site parking stalls and are creating 5 new parking stalls along the street with the new sidewalk, as well as a new sidewalk and landscaping. In addition to the dedication of the lane, construction of the lane, construction of the sidewalk, and street landscaping, we're offering, as Ms. McGuire said, a CAC of over $205,000. I've included 2 pictures of previously built homes that we have built across the street on Glenmore back when they were approved in 2020. These not only have very similar lot frontages, actually identical, they also have very similar home sizing to what we're proposing today. So, thank you very much. If you guys have any questions, we're here.
Thank you. Can we just go back to the streetscape? Thank you, that one. Well, could you speed it, go forward a bit? This one, thank you. Where is the site servicing coming in from for these homes?
Off of Glenmore?
So the site servicing needs to be put in first before the sidewalk. I'm just thinking about the sequencing of, wouldn't be much point in putting a sidewalk across in front of the neighbors' homes if they're going to be torn up at some point in time. There's got to be another solution.
Usually you can get away, I mean, we would put the site servicing in first. West Vancouver staff actually come and bring our one line in. So we would have one storm, one sewer, and I believe one water coming into the site, and that would come at the southern edge of the site on Glenmore.
And then you distribute it?
Then we distribute it on site. That's one of the things of it being a strata development. When we originally started talking with West Vancouver staff, we had talked about doing this as a regular subdivision, just like we did at 5, 7, 9, and 11. However, with the incorporation of the laneway, we felt it was much better to have the strata development just to make things flow a little easier, dedicate the lane properly. So in this instance, we would have one sewer, one water, one storm, and then we distribute it on site. So if you were to do that in the northern and southern ones, if there already was a sidewalk there, it would only take a couple panels of sidewalk to kind of get that done, although not ideal if it is done retroactively. But for our development, the West Vancouver work staff, they put that in pretty much right away for us.
Got it. Okay, thanks very much. Questions from members of council? Thanks very much. We'll now ask members of the public who wish to address council.
Thank you, Mayor Sager. We have 5 names on our speakers list. The first is Robert Nelkis, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Nelkis? Nels.
Thank you, Mr. Nels. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do I sit here?
Yes, please.
Okay,
thank you,
thanks.
sir. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to speak. I'm just going to try to put my clock on because I know 5
There's
minutes.
one up over there as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Robert Nellis. I reside adjacent to 14 Glenmore Drive, the development property. I'm a petition signatory as well. In my overview of my presentation, I'd just like to briefly discuss the neighborhood, including the presence of Collingwood School in relation to the development and the petition. I'd also like to indicate my support for the development proposal with the recommendations and the request per the petition. As you're likely familiar with, Glenmore is a very quiet residential area, but we are challenged with handling outside traffic volumes and parking. Staff has spoken to the zoning, which is primarily single-family homes, with exceptions of the Glenmore Drive block that 14 Glenmore is on, and our properties that where some of the people are speaking tonight. And Glenmore has a very limited access routes. As you know, you head north towards Stevens or Southborough Drive, but you're then faced, and this is in the context of like the residents, but also the Collingwood School, drivers. There's really a very limited access, which is along Glenmore Drive is the key arterial road with 2 limited access points. You have Glenmore Drive to Glengarry Crescent, north of the school, or Deepdene Road to Glenmore Drive, south of the school. And those are really the only access points to from particularly the school users. In terms of 14 Glenmore Drive is situate with the development context of Collingwood School, which is a former, as you know, Glenmore Elementary School, which was closed in 1982, which had a much smaller footprint. The school expanded extensively in 2012, 2014. And the school, the post-expansion, Collingwood increased its students from 400 to 600 students. And this expansion, both physically and in number of students, has resulted in increased traffic, parking issues, and noise disrupting neighborhood peace and enjoyment. And this is a school that serves primarily commuting students, unlike other district schools. And of the turf field is a major issue due to excessive extracurricular use and sound amplification. Where that all leads is Glenmore Drive, the area development, and where I reside, which is a very busy street due to high traffic volume resulting from Collingwood School in the mornings and afternoons. It results in, as well, there's heavy pedestrian traffic as well as parking issues. It's a major entrance point to Cleveland Dam, Capilano River Regional Park, and the Baden-Powell Trail. And there's extensive use by hikers, dog walkers, and cyclists. It's also an access point for students to Collingwood School who would cross from North Vancouver over the Cleveland Dam. Basically you have on the west and east side of Glenmore Drive, with all this use and all the parking and all the traffic, you have an inability to walk safe on the west side where 14 Glenmore Drive is, where I reside, or on the east side due to the right-of-way that's taken up by users over the years, which makes it unsafe to walk at peak hours or the peak times where basically you have to step into traffic. That leads to, the support of the development proposal by myself and a number of the petitioners and recommendations per the petition. The developer has sought to address parking, good design, and appropriate density. So I would like to indicate my support for the proposal. The developer has a reputable, good track record on Glenmore Drive, as mentioned. I support the 4 recommendations in the petition regarding the development area designation, pedestrian safety, traffic calming measures, joint task force. In closing, residents are requesting district support to mitigate the school's impacts to the community, including the future residents of Unit 14. And this is an opportunity for the district to rejuvenate the community, improve both safety and quality of life of nearby residents. And therefore, I respectfully request Council to consider the amended petition as a holistic planning solution for Lower Glenmore and direct to district staff to implement the points in the amended petition as Council sees fit. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you for those thoughtful comments. Thank you. And we'll call the next speaker.
The next speaker is Greg Morrow, followed by Mark Selman.
Sorry, it's Mr. Morrill?
Morrow.
Yes.
Morrill. Thank you, Mr. Morrill. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. My name is Greg Morrow. I live at 24 Glenmore Drive.
Mr. Morrill, could I get you just to slide over a little bit so you're right in front of the microphone?
Right there?
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thanks very much.
Sure. I just wanted to talk about the neighborhood too. Where I live, there's a raised sidewalk and road running along the southeastern side of the school property, and they're only a few feet away from my backyard. My property is contiguous with the school's property, and I'm very close to the turf field as well. So anyway, since 2017, we have tried unsuccessfully. We had a group of people, residents, to address issues regarding noise, privacy, and safety with Collingwood School. On March 29th, 2018, we gave a petition signed by 35 residents regarding our concerns to Collingwood School. We also set up a committee with Collingwood School in 2018 and met twice a year. On November 27, 2020, the school let us know that they were unwilling to discuss our concerns, so we stopped meeting with them, realizing it was pointless. And then the school's construction really has caused a problem for us because it's created the construction has created an easterly facing amphitheater where the sound of whistles, coaches, and students yelling and fans cheering, amplifying noise to a point which is well above the limits that I feel is probably breaking the bylaws. Bylaws probably disagrees with that, but readings I've taken, it is breaking the bylaws. This will affect the residents of the new proposed development as well. In recent years, I have seen a huge increase both in duration and intensity of activity, meaning that the noise is constant from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and often later. The reason is that after regular school ends, the field is rented out 6 days a week. Also, there is unauthorized use of the field by large groups at night. This year, on Saturdays, the people renting Morgan Field are now hosting soccer games. Teams from outside the district, including teams from Squamish, show up. Usually 2 games are played back to back. At times, when they're all there, like between the 2 games, there could be 100, up to 100 people on the field. And then there's also a large increase in traffic in the area, causing problems for parking for anybody trying to use the parks and stuff around the area. As a result, there is little time each week when we can actually enjoy our own backyards without excessive noise. Lack of privacy from hundreds of people walking by on the sidewalk that is just raised above my yard, and there's no fence there, any effective fencing or anything to protect or to provide some privacy. And there's always a threat of soccer, rugby, and other objects flying into the yard because there is no protective fence. Before Collingwood School opened, my daughters and friends enjoyed coming over for visits and barbecues. Sadly, we rarely do that anymore because of noise and lack of privacy caused by Collingwood School's activities. When the school was being built, permission to extend work hours was denied by council because of noise concerns of the residents. The noise now is louder and later into the night. With a construction project, there's always an end in sight from the noise. That isn't going to happen with Collingwood School noise. We desperately need help from the mayor and council to make our community livable again. The purpose of the task force really is we're hoping that with the help from the mayor and council, we can work together with Collingwood School and make the Glenmore neighborhood a nice place to live again. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Morrell. Thanks very much. Mr. Harper, could I trouble you to come back up and put the map of the street up so that when members of the public are speaking, we can better identify where they live?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
Probably that one.
That's the best one, yes. Thanks very much. Yes.
The next speaker is Mark Selman, followed by Mitch Rigney.
Thank you. Mr. Southern, is it?
Selman.
Selman. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, sir.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the chance to speak to you all about this issue that really affects us. I'm traveling along, a fellow traveler with these 2 fine gentlemen who have spoken before me, and in agreement with them, and just wanting to expand a bit on some of the remarks they've made. But we're in support of the proposal, the proposed development. It makes sense in our neighborhood. We know density, nobody's going to be stopping density in most neighborhoods in the Lower Mainland. It's not a threat if it's managed properly, and this is managing it properly, we think. What is more of a threat to our enjoyment, as has been made clear, I think, by my neighbors, is the presence of the school. We don't object to there being a school, but we believe that the issues, the impacts of the school on our neighborhood could be managed much better, especially if we work together to try and manage them. I'm going to speak primarily about parking and traffic flow and safety, which are all interrelated in the neighborhood. As you all may know, when the school was originally proposed, the Morven campus was proposed to the West Van Planning Committee. A plan was outlined about how the traffic could flow and how what restrictions would be there on school-related cars. And that plan is still available on the Morven campus website, where it is the good neighbor policy. So the idea, there are two main elements to this. One is that cars would not stop to drop off or pick up students except on school property, and would not park in the area because there would be parking provided in the school. And the other one being that the traffic would flow in a clockwise direction, as has been outlined by Rob earlier, meaning that there'd be an orderly flow of traffic through the neighborhood. It is actually a pretty good plan. Unfortunately, it's not implemented. There's more than one reason for it not being implemented. From our point of view, we understand that the school doesn't have control over all the aspects of the plan and can't necessarily force the parents of students to behave in a particular manner. On the other hand, we feel that much more could be done to try to encourage many things: fewer students driving their own cars or getting delivered by personal vehicle, more use of the buses. Since COVID, there's been a huge increase in the number of private cars related to the school, both parking and in terms of traffic. So those are concerns for us. Unfortunately, we think that the parking regulations, which are the district's responsibility, of course, actually contribute to the problems in some areas. And one of them is right in front of this development, this proposed development, where along the west side of Glenmore, there are no parking restrictions. So, of course, those spaces get occupied by students from 8 o'clock in the morning or 8:15, something like that, until around 4 o'clock, taking up most of the available parking. And so, since there's no sidewalks there, only just a unpaved shoulder, and it's a narrow road, only 2 lanes, and a lot of pedestrians, as been mentioned, it makes for a dangerous situation. And so we believe that the sidewalk is a really important part of that, but it's not the whole solution. A similar kind of problem exists on Glengarry Crescent, the opposite side, the side where I happen to live, which runs along Glenmore Park. And there's all the way down there by the tennis courts, there's a wall of parked Morven cars every day from 8:15 or so until around 4 o'clock. So, and then when rush hour starts, this is school rush hour in our neighborhood, there's another lane of idling cars from the parents and caregivers who are picking up kids. So you can squeeze 3 lanes of traffic into the road, but 2 of the lanes are completely taken up. So that leaves 1 lane for any moving traffic, whichever direction it's going in. And since you can't see from one end of the street to the other because of a curve, that's not a very good situation.
That's time, sir.
It also prevents parents from visiting the park with their small kids.
Sir, if you wish to come back to finish your remarks after we hear from the others, you're more than welcome to do so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mitch Rigney, followed by James Wang.
Mr. Rigney, nice to see you.
Good evening.
I knew this gentleman years and years ago. I think we played golf together or something.
Well, we actually went to a cabin together.
We did, didn't we?
Yes. I'm very much in favor of this proposal. It's really improved the neighborhood. The concerns of the traffic I've got myself. I have people parking I live at 42 Glenmore Drive.
So would that be?
It's just above Morven.
Oh, it's outside of this drawing then?
It is. It's on 2 blocks from it. So, and I'm in favor of the high density living in this area. It's good, and I've heard a lot of complaints about traffic, and it's basically caused by the school. I would like to see a little bit more policing in the area during the heavy times, especially in the afternoon. And maybe we could actually get residential stickers where we can actually park during those times and not be considered to be violating the law. The stop sign at Morven and Glenmore is constantly run by the parents picking up and a lot of times coming into oncoming traffic. So it's quite dangerous a lot of times driving at that particular time. I would like to see that at least monitored a few times to stop that, because otherwise I think everybody can get along in this neighborhood. I just wanted to show my support for Jamie because I think he's done a great job in the other houses that he put up there, and I think these will look really good in the area. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
I hope we can have something where we can. I've had the district. I had some wood on my boulevard I had to remove because of bylaws, but then I have to pay to get it, making it look good by being cut and mowed and trimmed and so forth. And then as soon as I remove that, I've got cars parking on my boulevard, which ruins it through the rain and gets rutted up, and then I can't make it look good. So I would like a little bit more policing in that area, especially at the high volume area of the afternoon.
Got it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
you.
And the last name on our list is James Wang.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Councilor. I try to use my good English.
Perfect.
I heard a lot of people talk about the traffic around the neighborhood. I live in number 10 Glenmore Drive, just right beside this side. But when the builder start building the cross the street, I realized this neighbor going to have a little big trouble. So if you close your eyes, think about the West Vancouver King Street between 11 and Burry Street. That's a 30 zone, okay? And Fulton, just outside here, from 12th Street to 16th Street is 30 zone. These two streets is more wider than our place, okay? And our place, since before COVID, I keep writing a letter to city engineering. I keep making a phone call to bylaw. I say I keep hurting the cyclists in this neighborhood got hurt because the car drive too fast. And sometimes I can hear the hiker try to cross the street, they're yelling slow down because people drive too fast. And finally, I don't know who did it, put the pedestrian crosswalk and a sign. And I do remember a couple of years ago, West Vancouver police do come to our neighbor to catch kids speedy. I give them big song. I say, thank you for your coming, stop it here. But that time, we do have a school zone on the Granmore Street. A couple of months ago, I realized somebody removed the school zone sign, become 50 zone. I don't know who did it. Okay, so every Monday is our garbage day. So every time I try to pull the garbage outside, I got a free shower because parents don't slow down, spot water to me. Okay, so imagine how narrow that street, why the people drive that fast. Okay, so we already hear so many people talk about it. Please just come to that area Monday morning between 7:30 to 8 o'clock. See what's going on. And also go there 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, see how many people parking on non-stopping sign zone. Okay, that's what I want to say. Okay, the developer tried to put a 5 parking space outside the street. And the thing about it, the 5 parking spot, I don't think you can put an extra sidewalk there because it's already too narrow. Because we just live right across that area. Before, so many people can use the outside, park the car, go hiking or go for dog walking. Now they don't come because we don't have space because the 2 units across the street, they occupy the old space. Even we want to have some visitor come over, we have no space parking. That's the issue. So, so many story here. So I just wish we go just Monday morning, Monday afternoon, take a look. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Thanks very much. Anyone else this evening?
No one else on the list, Mayor Sager.
Is there anyone here this evening that wishes to address council? And I'll ask 3 times. Is there anyone else who wishes to address council? Anyone else? Last time? Thank you. Councillor Gambioli.
Thank you. Let's see, there's a lot of things sort of mixed up in this. What I would like to do is, we've heard less about the development and more about the local traffic situation. I'd like to ask I see that there are some representatives from Collingwood here, and I'm wondering if they would like to respond to some of what's been suggested. And I know that we received a letter by email from you today, but perhaps the rest of the public isn't familiar with that information. And so I wonder if...
Councillor Gambioli, the only point I would make on that is we are considering this development.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a recommendation after we close the public hearing as to what I think would be appropriate steps. And certainly I think working with Collingwood, my experience in my meetings with them is that they're very responsible community citizens. And I think with their willingness, I suppose the only question we could ask is, are they willing to join on a task force, as has been suggested by the neighbors? And they're nodding yes, so I'm not even going to. I think there's a real opportunity here for us all to work together and really address the concerns that the neighbors have quite rightly brought up.
Okay, so then the questions I have remaining are the idea from the petition, just since we've got planning staff here, about rezoning the whole neighborhood. I realize you said this would be, outside the decision, but I think that it would be beneficial to just get a sort of an idea of what we're talking about here. If council were actually to decide to direct staff to start to create that, what kind of time frame are we talking about? And is there anything else you have to add?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli, I think we would attempt to do it as sort of expeditiously as possible. I think that the general scope of the area that the folks are interested in rezoning, as far as I understand, is fairly well defined. So I don't think it's a tremendous amount of work to define the area. I think that you're basically asking for the same treatment in a lot of ways. So I think we would look at that, provide some technical analysis, and I think that could be done relatively quickly. That being said, our staff are very busy. Next week we have Ambleside and Cypress. But I think that once those move forward, we could move expeditiously on a plan to look at that rezoning. I think it's at least 3 to 4 months work, but that's something I think that we could bring back to council.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Bailey.
and then the other question I had is around this idea of a joint task force. So it's been suggested by engineering staff that this could be part of the the roundtable, but I've been on that for 4 or 5 years in total, and I don't think there's really a space for that at those meetings. So does staff have another suggestion as to how that would work? Would this just be a kind of a one-off thing, or I don't actually see how it would work on that as part of that committee.
I think I was going to make a recommendation on that. I think the neighborhood request is incredibly reasonable, and I think it will only improve the area. So I would be suggesting that we would ask, say, 2 members of the public, 1 member of Collingwood School, a member of our engineering staff, and either myself or a member of council be on a task force to come back with recommendations as soon as possible. And some of them, to me, just seem really simple, like a 30-kilometer zone there. I just don't see how that could be an issue. And then it would be the implementation of the sidewalk and some of the traffic programs. So I think we could easily form a task force quickly. I'm sure that there's a few members of the public who are here this evening that would volunteer their time. Mr. Bailey, any thoughts on that?
Through the mayor, I think that's something that could be achieved. I think, the task force is also going to have to consider budget, if there are improvements that are made, but that could fit quite nicely into a conversation about the rezoning and any amenity contributions that come from that could contribute to sidewalk improvements, other public realm improvements.
And I'd also tap the developer of this particular project, because I suspect, given his success with the other homes, and I should say we got a letter, very nice letter from one of your purchasers today, and raved about the quality of his home. So I think we tap on you as well to bring your thoughts on how the rest of the area would develop.
Absolutely, honored.
Does that sound workable, Councillor Gambioli? Thank you. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, both Councillor Cassidy and I had expressed willingness and desire to work with the residents, but I know it would be put out, but we did have those conversations separately with them when we went around to meet them. And I also, just more of a comment than anything, this is the most unusual public hearing because everybody's coming out in support of the development, and the interesting dilemma here is that the developer technically has the same problem as all the residents or his new clients will. So I'm really hoping that we can come towards some solutions with Collingwood and our own engineering and planning staff.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Is there anyone who wishes to address council arising out of those comments? And hearing none, could I have a motion to close the public hearing, please? Councillor Gambioli?
Yes. So I will recommend that all written and oral submissions regarding proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985, 2018, amendment bylaw number 5335, 2024, and proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5336, 2024, and proposed development permit 23-100 for 14 Glenmore Drive up to and including this June 17th, 2024 public hearing be received and that the public hearing be closed.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Snyder. Oh, sorry, Councillor Watt. No, I can't second that. Oh, any discussion? I'll call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried. I'll now move to the council meeting, and I'll go back and redo as though we're starting now. Here we go. I call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda, unless I hear otherwise, it will pass by unanimous consent. Item number 3, the adoption of the minutes. Unless I hear otherwise, it will be written as unanimous consent. Item number 4, the Union of BC Municipalities. Unless I hear otherwise, it is passed by unanimous consent. We'll now turn to bylaws, and that is resulting from tonight's public hearing. Councillor Watt.
I'd like to recommend that proposed officially community plan bylaw number 4985, 2018, amendment bylaw number 5335, 2024 be read a second time.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Snyder. Question, all in favor? Contrary carried. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, and I'd like to recommend that proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985, 2018, amendment bylaw number 5335, 2024 be read a third time.
Is there a seconder? Call a question. All in favor? Contrary carried.
And I would like to recommend that zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5336, 2024 be read a second time.
Thank you. Councillor Gambioli.
So I've got a comment on this, just a small thing, but it's, yeah, as Councillor Watt said, it's pretty refreshing that we're actually all on the same page regarding the proposal. But what I like about the design here, as was mentioned, there's not going to be cars driving into 6 different driveways, which is great. But so that's a huge benefit, I would say, just to the aesthetic of the neighborhood. But as was mentioned by the second speaker, he's literally getting, soccer balls and rugby balls and everything over the fence into his backyard all the time. So the fact that there's a bit of a buffer there because of the back road, I think is a really good design. And I think that, when the other properties along the contiguous to the school get redeveloped, I think that's, if they're, enough width, I guess, to sustain that, I think that's a really good design feature that should be continued. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess our planning staff just left, but anyway, that was for them to hear.
Thank you, Councillor Gambiola, and it is true. I think it's a really smart design. I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary carried. And finally.
I'd like to recommend that proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010, amendment bylaw number 5336, 2024 be read a third time.
Question. All in favor? Contrary carried. So the only thing I would ask coming out of that, and I'll direct it to our administrative staff, if we could bring back at some point in time, whether it's using the power as the mayor to appoint a committee, but if we could not lose track of the fact, I think we've made a commitment to work with the neighbors. Thank you very much. Item number 6 is the proposed bylaw amendments for the Caulfield land use contract. This is for final reading on all of these items, and unless I hear otherwise, they will be moved by unanimous consent. Thank you. Item number 7, there is no new business, and the consent agenda items, unless I hear otherwise, they are passed by unanimous consent. And we'll now go to reports from members of council, and we'll start with Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Well, I think we all had a wonderful night at our annual community awards, where we presented to 14 recipients on various acts of nobility and contribution to our community. And it's an event where all members of council show up and present, and really the joy of it all is listening to each individual story and what highlights these people in our community. And it's always remarkable how many great people there are. So, we just
there we go.
Thank you, council. It was great.
Thank you. Councillor Snyder.
Just a couple of reports. So myself and Councillor Watt and Councillor Lamber and Councillor Thompson and Councillor Gambioli attended the West Vancouver Foundation's 45th anniversary at the West Vancouver Yacht Club last Monday, as opposed to a council meeting. It was a beautiful evening with a beautiful backdrop and very, very well attended. Found it very interesting. The West Vancouver Foundation at this time has about $13 million in reserves that have been contributed to by members of the community. In fact, they had one extremely large contribution, their largest yet to date. I believe it was a $5 million contribution to the foundation. So the goal for their 50th anniversary is to reach $50 million. So they've got quite a goal ahead of them for the next 5 years in raising some more money for the foundation. The real purpose of the foundation really is to bring the community together. And I actually found it just a real quick little story. On the Sunday before the foundation evening, I had an invitation to attend my block party in my neighborhood, and I was like, okay, off to the block party, and they sent out a flyer, and they said it's sponsored by the West Vancouver Foundations and the Small Grant Program. And I sort of thought to myself, what do you mean? The community and taxpayers are funding block parties now? And so I marched on down there and learned a little bit more that actually it's the West Vancouver Foundation, nothing to do with the district per se. And they actually have a program. It's a small grants program, and it's designed for bringing members of the community together. And one of those programs is any community can apply to the West Vancouver Foundation for up to $500 One of the things that can be done is a small block party in your community. There are certain requirements that have to be met and what have you, but it was a great event. You know, they served hot dogs and hamburgers and stuff for the kids and what have you. It's all put on. It's all done by the community members who live in the neighborhood, but there was a small grant program from the foundation, and the purpose of it really is to bring the community together. And for me, living in a brand new neighborhood there for under a year now, I got to meet a whole bunch of my neighbors that I otherwise wouldn't have got to meet. So it certainly served its goal and purpose there. So that was a great evening. Also, I had the pleasure as acting mayor for the month of June to attend on June the 11th at the Royal Canadian Army Cadets Annual Review. And it's the Army Cadets are designed for use, male and female, between the ages of 13 to 18. And it really brings a real sense. It's like a club. It's a real organization. It teaches a lot of discipline, and it teaches a lot of skill sets as well that people use in the community as we all get older. So at the annual review, they demonstrate what they've learned and what they've been trained on throughout the year, and there were awards for accomplishments handed out to all of those were the awards. Our Fire Chief Gordon was also there in attendance with me, and it was very well attended, and it was quite an interesting evening. So that's it on my end.
Thanks very much, Councillor Snyder, and thanks for covering for me. Myself and Mayor Mike Little attended in Anaheim, California last week for a American Water Association conference, and I'm going to bring Council a full report on that, but it will take far longer than we have time tonight. There were 10,000 delegates, over 50 countries represented, and just an amazing amount. I attended because I serve as the vice chair for Metro Water, and there was so much that we take for granted in our water system. It's unbelievable. But lots of thoughts and ideas come out of that. But it'll be for another day. I'll turn it to Councillor Watt.
Yeah. First, I have a question for Councillor Snyder. Are there any girls in the Sea Scouts and the Air Cadets now? Good. I was a Sea Scout when I was 14, and there was only one other girl, so just thought I'd add that. But I just wanted to report on June 23rd, 11 to 4, is the annual Horseshoe Bay Art Walk, and so I think the weather's supposed to be nice, and it's a lovely walk. There's a map that you can find online, and there's also some, in the village you'll see on some signs. They've got a clapboard in front of Pudgy's Pizza. But anyway, it's a fabulous way to meet some local artists, go around, get to know people in the community. So keep that in mind, 11 to 4. And you can find it on their website, which is horseshoebayartwalk.com.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Okay. Unless I hear otherwise, those reports are passed by unanimous consent. And I'll ask, are there any members of the public who wish to address council this evening? I saw Ms. Jones went up and put her name on the list. So I'm assuming that Ms. Jones, you wish to address council this evening.
What's Monday night?
Without having the opportunity to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much. Compliments to the Caulfield land use contract detail. I haven't been able to take the time to read that thoroughly and have a clear overall, my view is overall. And so the two things that I would like to just generalize is in relation to the tree survey that is a part of that land use contract, especially 5500 block Parthenon to 5490 Marine Drive. So as we all know, trees grow in communities, and I thank the survey that is depicting, I predict the large trees that need to be protected. But I just hope that the governance of these statuesque creatures takes into consideration the next generation of smaller trees that also must be protected as part of that community. It's all very well to have 90 centimeter trees or whatever protected, but we really do need also the 45 centimeter trees and the 60 centimeter trees. And it's not until, I think everyone knows, the trees are 75 centimeters diameter that they're taken, seriously. So I'd just like to remind staff and all of the district that we can't just let the smaller trees be taken down without real serious consideration as to how that affects the overall. When I was working on the Caulfield land use contract 30 years ago, there was a trade-off with the Greenbelt along behind Keith Road in the 5200 block that was a narrow smidgen. And those trees blew down, including one or two that fell on houses when people were thankfully away for the weekend. One tree fell right across the double bed of the homeowners. And we can't just do that where there's one nice tree and then just, catapult the area. And I think it must be, I'm reading into the focus on ground level, that we're not having blasting of rock as much and working with the terrain. That's what I'm reading into it without really knowing. So applause to that. I'm really grateful to see that there's building into the landscape. And so the other thing is watercourse protection, and I just urge the district to scrutinize on an ongoing, constant basis the moving away from the BC regulations that this district makes excuses and jeopardizes the water courses in trading off. The trade-off thing of we'll allow this here because something else is going to be improved elsewhere.
That's time, ma'am.
I think that's a practice that needs to be, with every situation, scrutinized and protected so that we really do meet the BC standards, which is nothing happens within 10 meters of the
15
riverbank.
meters.
Well, it depends where the urban development is, but from what I understand, nothing happens within 10. But if you want to say 15, I'm for that. Do you want to sign that?
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Is there any other member of the public who wishes to address council this evening? If not, by unanimous consent, we will adjourn. Thank you.